You're listening to the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast, celebrating hunting dog heritage, competition, and community. United Kennel Club has been the hunting dog sports home for coonhounds, beagles, retrievers, pointers, cur, feist, and more for over 125 years.
Welcome back to the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast. This is Trevor Wade. I'm the Coonhound Program Manager at UKC, and I'm joined today, as always, by the Director of Hunting Ops, Alan Gingrich. What's going on today, Alan?
Well, same, but not same. Far from same. We have some special guests here, and we're sitting outside on a deck in Greencastle, Indiana, at 3 Fat Labs on a beautiful Saturday afternoon. Not a cloud in the sky. The birds are chirping. Just a beautiful day, but we have a couple special guests, a couple field reps today.
Yeah, we had to get some experts in the building. First, we got Mr. Philip Foster here from South Carolina. What's going on, Philip?
Oh, doing great. Just happy to be here, Trevor. It's a beautiful day, and just happy to be enjoying myself out here at 3 Fat Labs on this beautiful day.
We're glad you're here.
Yeah.
And sitting across the table from me is Mr. Brandon Scow from Kentucky. What's happening, Brandon?
All doing the best ever was. I'm, again, just glad to be here. Beautiful day. It was a little rainy, a little wet, a little cold, and I guess we were saving the best wine for last year on the end because it is one nice day to be in Greencastle, Indiana.
Yeah, anybody who could prosper through to today is getting to reap the benefits because sitting on this back deck here with this nice breeze and seeing the sun and the trees starting to bloom here, it's a beautiful sight.
Yeah, it is. I wouldn't mind going down over the edge here, down over this hill. I think you could probably find some mushrooms about now.
Oh, I imagine you could,
But,
for sure.
yeah.
Brandon's sons already took one of our judges' dog and took him down to this holler behind us here and tried to tree a couple squirrels.
We heard him treed back here a little while ago.
Can't keep him out of the woods, can you?
Can't keep him out of the woods. That's why I was talking to one of our judges, Eric Bowling. He had come up, and I said, "Where in the world was you at?" He said, "Man, I about forgot." He said, "I out here finding mushrooms. I guess they had found a handful of mushrooms there. They down there by the creek."
Oh, they must have come in the old way here. Back, I saw people picking mushrooms there past couple of years. But hey, a couple of weeks back in April, late March, early April, sometime we released a podcast talking about common coonhound misconceptions or misinterpretations, and I kind of enlisted the help of the field reps a little bit on that, and me and Alan had some discussions. We not to say that we could have talked forever, but we wanted to keep it within time restraints. And got a lot of positive feedback. I know I did. Alan said you did. Philip, you said you got a lot on it too.
I sure did. I got a lot of positive feedback on that podcast. I sure did.
That was, and everybody learns differently. Everybody looks through different lenses. To me, that was one of the best podcasts there was out there. I got more feedback than any other ones.
Yeah.
Just throwing in different misconceptions, different understandings. And once it comes, I can read something 2 or 3 times and it might not click to me, but when you hear it on a podcast, a misconception, kind of learn it backward, instead of from the front to the back, you go from the back to the front, and it just helps people better understand, and a lot of positive feedback. That was
Yeah, I think the best thing I like about it is now there's a bunch of them all together in one spot, and people can just reference that one podcast rather than trying to surf through and do different things. But I think we probably left a lot of meat on the bone when talking about misinterpretations, and I've kind of, over the past several days, tried to come up with a couple myself. I know we don't have a whole lot of time here. Probably it won't be the longest podcast in the world, but I got several, and hopefully I know Brandon's rule book over there is all marked up. Sounds like he may have 1 or 2, and I don't know about Philip or Alan, but I don't know. You want me to start the ball rolling here?
Sure.
Yeah. Actually, kind of funny. We was kind of expecting to have Doug on here, and me and Philip were having a discussion yesterday talking about Doug Cundiff, another one of our field reps. But he's tied up with some guide stuff right now, I believe. But
I don't know if our listeners can hear this, but whose idea was it to do a podcast right next to a train track? Trevor, was that?
Who wanted to build a train track there? I blame that guy. But
we are outside, and we're not too far from a train track, and it's going by. Hopefully they can't hear it. But
yeah, I wonder if they can. But me and Philip were kind of talking there yesterday, and I asked Doug about one, and actually Doug had mentioned one that I had on my list already. So I think that's a pretty good place to start. And it's actually one that we probably talked about several months ago as part of a bigger podcast talking specifically about holes. But I think we're still seeing it a lot, and I think we've even seen it here recently, is whenever you have a situation where, let's say we have dog A and B, and dog A gets first and first, is struck and treed in, and dog B is just struck, just for 75. He's not shut out or anything. And you get in there and you find the dog's in a hole, both A and B. And a lot of people in this situation, and the misinterpretation is people are wanting to consider dog B treeing but not declared treed because he's in the hole of a dog that's been declared treed. But that's not the case. The key word there is treeing but not declared treed. Being a hole is not treeing.
Yeah, we have a specific rule for dogs treeing in places other than a tree, and most times what that refers to is a place of refuge, or oftentimes that means a hole. So there's two different. We can dumb it down even further than that. Is there's several scenarios there. The one you mentioned, you've got dog A declared treed, but dog B is there treeing when you get there. The rule says, and you can look up the rule. I don't remember. We've changed them around a little bit, so the rule number escapes my memory at the moment, but it's going to say something to the effect that in scoring those dogs that are there, a dog declared struck and treed to receive strike and tree points, and dogs struck only to strike points only.
Yeah.
Dogs not declared treed, strike points only, and that's why dog B also gets to score on this.
Yeah. And while we got you there, pull out your highlighter, get your rule book out. Rule 3B is what we're looking for. Says when dog is declared struck and treed and coon is seen other than in tree, dog declared treed to receive strike and tree points. Dogs not declared treed, strike points only. It doesn't matter if one's treed and one isn't. You still apply the same rule.
Yeah, and the other thing that doesn't matter, there's a 3-minute time, and I want to use another little scenario here. But for this one, we're using dog A and B. One is declared treed, the other is not. But so you have to wait the 3 minutes because you have a dog declared treed. And this other one, as far as the 3-minute window, once we've waited this 3 minutes, we get there, and really, it doesn't matter when that other dog came in.
Right.
He's still going to get his strike points. If he's there when we get there, it could have taken us 6 minutes to get there, or 10 minutes, or 20 minutes, and there's a second dog there treeing but not declared treed. That dog is still, by rule, going to get scored on his strike points.
Right.
We don't have, they're not, and it's the one thing in the rules where a dog's going to get scored that is not declared treed. You guys have anything to add to that? That's pretty straightforward.
That's pretty straightforward.
That's
yeah,
cut
that
and
they're
right.
just accountable for their strike points.
Yeah. Now, the other thing I think that we need to cover here while we're talking about this, and I think you briefly mentioned it's come up recently, is when you declare a dog treed, even though you may or may not know it's in a hole, you have to wait your 3 minutes. There's a misconception. Some feel or think that because we also had in the same rule of you can actually go to a dog that is in a hole without declaring them treed. And in that case, you can go to them right away. You don't have to wait the 3 minutes. But anytime you declare a dog treed, you cannot go to handle them until that 3 minutes is up.
Yep, that's absolutely right. Once you declare that dog treed, you must wait the time before scoring that dog.
Doesn't matter if it's in a hole or not.
That's absolutely right.
Yep. But and that's the difference in the variance in that rule. When no dog is declared treed there, then you don't have to wait any time. You can do it right away in the first 10 seconds.
Absolutely.
And then the rule goes on to say, at least one of the dogs there must show the hole. So it's not like they all, if there's 4 of them, they must, if you're going to score all 4, that they all have to have their nose or head in the hole.
Right.
It's just basically all the dogs that are there, and you have to have one showing the end of the trail.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. Does anybody want me to go through another one here? So somebody got one they want to do?
Yeah, I didn't mean to hog all that.
No, you're good. You get
Go ahead.
That's good.
Yeah, well, hey, I got another one here, and it's one that actually I remember. It's on our Master of Hounds test. It's one that that gets missed pretty often, actually. And a couple of years here, we in the middle of a live show, I remember had a pretty heated discussion. I'm like, with some guys who are pretty top quality judges who had this one wrong, and talking about dogs that are treed in before timeout is called, and they're wanting to delete the tree for the dogs that are treed in beforehand. And that's not the case. Any dogs that are treed in before timeout are called, every effort needs to be made to score those dogs.
Yep, that's absolutely right. Once those dogs are treed, you need to make every effort to score them.
Yeah, you'll find that in 11 in the rule book, but also there's a little bit of, we actually, just in the past rule update, we added it to section 7 where it talks about timeouts. And it actually, just for clarity, under 7 timeouts there's in italics, there's a note, dogs declared treed prior to timeout being called shall be scored. that might be a pretty good place to highlight as well. That's pretty cut and dry. A lot of people want to delete that, and there could be an instance where it has to happen. If you have an irate landowner standing at your tree when you get there, you're not going to say, "Hey, hold on one second, buddy. Let me shine this thing." There's maybe some certain situations where you just can't shine that tree, but every effort needs to be made to score a tree. The dog got treed in during hunt time before the timeout's called. Let's get the tree scored.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, and safety is paramount at any hunt. We saw a river that was out of banks, and a dog had got across the river. But we have to be scoring the trees if they're treed in during the time. You can't just not score them.
Pretty easy on that one. I have another one here, and this one actually kind of stems from Phillips that we had on the last episode. You put in the one about dog not being on the grounds, and they get an hour grace period.
Yeah, that's a big one right there. Yeah. That's a good one because I've seen that quite a bit, folks. Delay of the cast. Folks think, if that handler's not there when you call the cast, there's no really grace period for that. When you call the cast, they got to be there ready to roll.
Any time that they wait is either their event official or their judge kind of cutting them some slack.
That's absolutely right. Yep.
But it kind of made me think, and it's one I actually heard just after that week, somebody calling in, and the situation is pretty simple. And sometimes we have to use our common sense on some of these things. The situation is they need a guide for the hunt. The guy's working late. He's going to make it there before deadline, but he don't have time to go to his house, come to the club, and then he's going to his house to guide. And the guy who calls me wants the guy scratched because the guy's dog isn't on the grounds at the time he enters the hunt. And that's kind of, you hear that around there sometimes. You're not going to find that in our rule book. Obviously, if you're not guiding, we're not going to drive 30 minutes out of the way to go get your dog before you go to your hunting spot. But if you got somebody who's helping a club out to guide, and he's not going to drive 30 minutes to his house, come to the club, enter, and then go back to his house if he's hunting at his house. Sometimes you have to use, some common sense on this.
I think you have to use some common sense especially back, 20, 30 years ago. A lot of these rules were written then. And, things have changed a little bit, so they might not fit quite as well as they did at one time when they were written. But back in the 20, 30 years ago, I remember at our club, you didn't know if I had a night champion or a registered dog, I was expected to guide where I was needed to guide. Our hunters first, not me. Yep. So I may not know which category I'm going to be needed. So that may have been a reason I'm going to be hunting around my house, and instead of dragging two dogs, I got to drop one of them off. Mm-hmm. So I think that was maybe more, that was played a part of it more back in the day than it does now. Right. But yeah, going back to what we're talking, the delay of the cast, Rule 6E says, dog is scratched for delaying completion of cast for 1 hour after timeout is called during the hunt in accordance with Rule 7. Rule 7 are the timeout rules, different scenarios you can call timeout for. But it's that delaying the cast that folks get hung up on sometime, whether it's at the beginning, whether it's at the clubhouse, to go out hunting or any other part, delaying the cast. Yeah, you could use the same term. But the only time the term delaying the cast is used, that language is used, is for as it applies to timeout after timeout has been called during your hunt. It's the only time. Yep. No other time. Yep. Any other time, the official or whatever simply makes a decision how long you're going to wait. That might be not going to wait at all. That might be 2 minutes, 5 minutes, might be half an hour, might be an hour. Yep. The official's he's going to, depending on a lot of whatever the variables or whatever the situation is. Mm-hmm. And I think both parties need to be reasonable to make that decision. Right. Yep. And lastly, I would say, just be there.
Be there. Yeah. That's the bottom line. Be there.
Yeah.
Be there. Yeah. Yep. I'll tell you another one since we're talking about hunts. Let's talk about judges a little bit. I've had situations, we try to pick the quality judges the best we can. But sometimes you call the cast out and somebody might say, well, we're all judges. I'm just a scorekeeper. But you know what? That's not the case. The judge has authority for that cast, and when you hand him that card until that card's turned back in. And, we're not all judges. So that's one we probably need to talk about a little bit. What's y'all's guys' take on that?
Yeah, hey, it's simple. You've been assigned a judge. That means the event official has put that trust in you. In the case where you're not comfortable doing it, you don't get to make the decision to say, hey, we're all doing it, or hey, I'm going to assign you to judge instead of me. The rule book's pretty clear on this. You go straight to the event official, and if you're not comfortable judging, then he can change it for you. There's no judging by committee. That may sound good in theory, and it may feel like it's going to take the pressure off of you, but let me tell you something.
Doesn't
you
work
get in
well.
the woods,
It doesn't work well.
It's
Does
going to
not
get
work
sideways
Yep.
pretty quick.
And I always try to tell them, if you're not comfortable judging, come up and then we'll pick another judge before you go to the woods.
Oh.
But
and some of them think it's because of the voting procedure in place for it, and that's all fine. But you're not all judges. There's one judge that's in charge of everything who should make all the decisions. If I don't agree with it, I question it.
Yep. And boy, let me tell you, a good quality judge means everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hey, if I can piggyback off of that very thing right there, that we could maybe add to that. Oftentimes we get situations we're talking about voting. I didn't see it, so I don't know how to vote. How should I vote? And some guys have the theory of, I'm going to vote in favor of the dog, or unfortunately, maybe in some case, what benefits me the most. Hopefully not. But here's what I'd like folks to consider. And there's no specific rule on this. But here's what I've always tried to. One of my theories or logic is on it. You mentioned we try to select good judges,
absolutely,
that know the rules first and foremost, and then they make the decisions. They're in charge. So if there's a situation I didn't see, oftentimes it involves a dogfight. Maybe I didn't see it. I was the last one in line going in. I didn't see what whoever was in front saw. So here's my thing with that: if you didn't see anything to dispute what the judge's decision is made, why are you going against the judge's rule?
Right. Yep.
The rule says you have to, if you don't vote, if you're asked to vote and you don't vote, you're going to be scratched. You have to vote. So the question is, how do I vote if I didn't see it?
Yep.
So my thing is, hey, why are you going against the way the judge ruled unless you saw otherwise?
Yep. That's
you
right.
have to vote. If you don't, that's a scratchable. I mean, you're done.
And who's supposed to be the first one to the tree who would actually have the best vantage point to see that?
Yeah. And hey, I don't want to hog here, but I will say one other thing. I think the experience that I have learned is I also don't, as a judge, I also don't want to have, I get in there and I have a situation where somebody says I didn't see it. But I think I can control that a little bit. Before I get to the tree, I stop and look around, make sure I've got everybody here that is going to see everything I see when my light goes in there, so I don't have those.
Yep.
Give nobody.
Oh, that's a fact.
Yeah.
Keep the cast good and tight and together.
Yeah,
so when you walk in there, everybody's close together. That's right.
We could talk. We could just keep right on going with keeping the cast together. But
absolutely.
Bad things happen. We talk about that
all the time. Yep.
When they start getting scattered out, if you can maintain control of that cast and keep them together, if you can, if you keep it straight on the front side, it works out so much better on the back side when scores get turned in.
To stay to that point, you guys we're here at the Tournament of Champions this weekend. This may come out after the Tournament of Champions, but how many of the questions this weekend could have been prevented if people would have been a little bit more reasonable and not had to go handle their dog? I mean, a lot of the questions had to do because the people were split up.
Absolutely.
And now we got Doug here joining us. What's going on, Doug?
Not much, bud. How you doing?
It's been a busy weekend for you.
Yeah, it's been real busy.
You wear multiple hats here. You not only a field rep for us, but this is your host club here, and you work on guides. And you had to go guide a couple casts this weekend already.
Oh yeah.
But Doug's here now, and actually one that I wanted to mention. And I don't know if this is a misinterpretation as much as it is that people just don't really care what the rules are, maybe. But you won't find anywhere in the rule book where it says to Facebook message or to call Doug Cundiff or Philip Foster and try to figure out what the rule interpretation is from the tree if a question occurs. Is that in the rule book and I missed it?
Hey, I have been hogging the responses here, and I'm not going to say much, but I'm glad this one got brought up. But I want to hear you guys' perspective on that. That is not good. It doesn't work good.
Hell, I kind of wish I'd never given these guys my phone numbers, really, because I get a lot. Even these big hunts, I still get. They'll call you, and we cannot answer questions over the phone. And these guys, we tell them that, don't try to settle it in the woods as best you can. If you can't settle it, put a question on the card, bring it back later. Now, if it's a scratchable fence, you got to come back. But we just can't answer this over the phone. But I still, like on Friday and Saturday nights, well, just like the other night, we were sitting outside here. I get a phone call from a local hunt.
Yeah.
So, if you guys got to try to settle these questions in the woods. If you can't, put a question on the card, bring it back. Don't call us.
Yeah.
We can't do it.
Just curious. So I get a few Facebook messages. My phone number is probably not as readily available as you guys. On a given weekend, maybe not even a major weekend, how many people know you're a field rep? How many phone calls or messages are you guys receiving?
Sometimes I may get 5 or 6 calls a week.
Even for a hunt, they're on a cast. I'm not talking about somebody wanting a rule interpretation after a hunt's over. That's fine.
Yeah,
that's as long as you have time for it. That's fine, and that sort of thing. I'm talking about when somebody's in the heat of the moment at the hunt, and you're not even a part of the hunt. You think about 5 a weekend?
I have had that many.
Yeah,
before. Yeah.
Absolutely. And one thing for me, as I tell everybody, I said, if you need anything, you call me. And when I'm doing that, I'm being kind. If your car breaks down, if you need a pair of dry socks, something like that, here's my number, you call me. But what I've done, I kind of worked myself into a hole by saying, here's my number, because I saw it backfire on me, and I learned from my own mistakes at Decatur. Everybody had my phone numbers. Well, I was taking in the cards, transcribing them, and somebody would call in the field and have me on speakerphone. Well, I didn't even know one person was talking over the other one, and it was like taking the chicken across, come back, get the corn. I didn't, and I told them, I said, everybody needs to just move along. If it's a scratchable offense, like Doug said, bring it back for sure.
And a lot of these guys need to realize that we may be field reps, but we cannot overturn these master hounds or something on the weekends.
Absolutely.
I mean, if they got a question, they got to go back to that master hounds at that club. We can't get in the middle of that as field reps.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Us doing so really muddies it up for that official. Not just that, but it's also disrespectful to that official. There's a procedure in place. Follow the procedures, and don't call or message somebody else or your buddies or anybody really, because, and a lot of times, unfortunately, they will, hey, what's happening? What's your situation? Well, it's easy. It's human nature, I think, to just take that is your situation. But sometimes you will look a fool by just somebody's one person's opinion. And if you're out there, you hear everybody else next week, you hear everybody else's opinion or their scenario or their description of the scenario. You're like, ooh, boy, I surely told him all wrong then.
Yep.
And you can look a fool pretty quickly, but not just for that, but follow the procedures. Don't call officials, and not just, here's the other thing, don't call the master hounds either. That's not in there. He can't answer that. It's the same thing there, and that's why he needs to speak to everybody. Take it back.
Yep.
And they work pretty good. Just do that.
Yep.
It minimizes confusion.
Be patient.
Yep. And I'll say most times, if you'll just take the time in the woods and be reasonable, turn the card over and look at it, you can settle a lot of situations in the woods. A whole lot of situations.
Absolutely.
If you'll just take the time, don't let your emotions guide your thinking, look at the card, and most times you can settle it right there.
That goes for the person who has a question as well as the judge in the cast to also do that.
Absolutely. Yep.
Alan, I know we both have new Dogtra Pathfinder 2s. How are you liking yours so far?
I'm liking it. I've even had the opportunity now to use mine where I didn't have service, where I download the map of that area, and it works flawlessly. Love it.
I agree. I really like my Dogtra Pathfinder 2 as well. I've used it quite a bit the past few months. I really like the crystal clear maps. I like that it doesn't lose service very much, and I don't have many bad things to say about it at all. Dogtra Pathfinder 2, the official GPS collar partner of UKC. Brandon, I think you had one. Did you want to mention?
Well, I've never heard this one on the podcast. Never heard much clarity on it. It's falls under circled and deleted points. It's 5B. Of course, I'm just joking. This is this. We probably talked more about this one and wore ourselves out and everybody around. But it's funny that this yesterday, 5B coming right back in the judges meeting, and it's like it was hard for me to understand at first. So I understand some confusion, but we're just repainting the post again. We've talked about it on and on and on and on and on, and probably more than any rule in the book. But it's like a preacher you say on Sunday morning, can't add nothing to it, can't take nothing away from it. No dog to receive minus points for coming into the tree after judge arrives, unless a coon is seen and the dog treeing are awarded plus points. We can read into that, we can misconstrue it, we can add a little bit to it, just like it is. If a coon is seen, the dogs are plussed. The dog can receive some strike minus there. And the biggest one I guess I see is 3 dogs treed. 1 dog's out here milling. He comes into the tree. The 3 dogs are scratch A, B, C, or scratch for a possum. And they're still wanting to scratch dog D for coming in and kind of milling around, coming into the tree after the judge arrives. And that's just a hard one for some reason. And I know molesting off game or running off game or doing anything, there's tons of scratchable offenses, but I think that's one that we've talked about tremendously, but it still comes up every time I get around people. They ask me the same thing. And
yeah, I'd say that one's been touched on a few times, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It's been on every other podcast since advisor columns. And
I don't know. I have a lot of conversations with people about rules, and I know you guys too, and they say, well, I hate that rule. That don't make no sense, and this sort of thing. Hey, I don't agree with all the rules, and 5B is probably one that I don't like. I wouldn't say it. I don't say I. I think it's probably an older. It stems from older way of dogs and things like that. But it doesn't mean that that's not the one that we enforce. It's the rule is what the rule is, and we enforce them, and that's what it is. Don't like them all, but we enforce them.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's not our job to make them. We just enforce the rules.
That's right.
I'll piggyback off of that, what you just said right there. You know, sometimes you take a question back to the official, and I think the rules make it easy for the official because you just go by that. It's not Philip Foster's rule or anything like that. You're just the enforcer of rules.
Absolutely.
You know, and I think that makes it easier sometimes, that's, as far as rule violations go. Or
5B is not my opinion. That's just enforcing the rule.
Just the rule.
Yeah.
That's
good question. Doug, you work a bunch of the zones. You work Autumn Oaks. Probably Autumn Oaks Friday night, probably busiest night of the year. A ton of casts up your way. Winter Classic. It doesn't even have to be a common misconception. What's a rule you think you probably get, or what's a question you get in more than any other that you think of on top of your head?
One of them that's been changed here in the last year or two has been dogs declared treed and not declared treed, and you're going in and they're in the ground. You got dogs treed, but you walk into the ground there, and there's another dog there.
Yep.
Them guys think that dog, being he's not been treed, needs to be minused.
Yeah.
Well, it's not true.
Yeah.
The only way you can minus that dog when you get here, he's got to be on a tree.
Yeah. That's funny. We actually talked about that one a little bit earlier too.
Yeah.
It's like you said, it seems like to be popping up more and more, and I don't get it really. I mean, I don't know. The rule book is pretty black and white on it, and it's an easy one to point to for people. But yeah, I get that question quite a bit too.
Yep.
Yeah. Philip, you do a lot of big ones. Is there one? It doesn't even have to be, I guess, a common misconception, but is there a rule that you hear over and over?
Well, I tell you, the rule going to sending somebody to a split tree while you're in the process of shining a tree, that one still comes up quite a bit. And I tell you, I don't know how we can cover it any plainer. It's pretty cut and dried, but folks still think if you can go handle that dog if you're in the process of shining, and it sure doesn't work that way. And I tell you, don't try to talk. Don't let your buddy on the cast say, oh, let's just agree on this. We'll do it, and it's no problem. But once you do that, you open it up for problems, and you'll have problems. So that's one that seems to keep coming up quite a bit.
You sure made a fella mad at Southeastern a couple of years ago on that call.
Yeah, he wasn't happy, but we're going to do it by the rule book, and that's the way she went.
Yeah, a lot of people might argue with you, say it doesn't make sense, especially at a hunt like this. We've talked about it here at this hunt. We have non-hunting judges here, but what percentage of hunts in a year are non-hunting judges? Not very many. When you have a hunting judge involved, and you have to have everybody there to score a tree. When we're at a tree, this is the dog's tree. This is the handler's tree. Let's give him the respect of giving him his shine time and scoring the tree, and not be focusing on everything else. Let's score the man's tree.
Right.
No, that's right too. And the only thing I would add to that, really, where it comes in, letting somebody else talk you into it, or just, hey, we got to use some common sense here. And it happens sometimes, and that is you're shining a tree and another dog comes in and trees right over here, 10 yards over here. It would just be so easy to go over there and handle that dog, but you can't, and it's not, it's a rule violation if you do. And it happens sometimes, and you don't get to pick and choose which ones you're going to enforce and which ones you're not. And when you start doing that, things are going to get muddy and you're going to have trouble.
That's right.
I think that specific situation I was talking about, Southeastern actually took it a step further, and maybe that'd be interesting because we kind of talked already about if a dog is in a hole, you don't have to declare it treed.
Right.
And that was a situation here at this tree in question, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You're correct. It was.
Yeah. Fella's dog, they're there scoring a tree. A fella's dog is in a hole 30 feet away, he said.
Yeah,
30 yards
from where they're scoring the tree.
Yeah. And he went and handled the judge told him not to go handle your dog. He said, my dog's in a hole. I don't have to declare it treed. I'm going to get it. Well, that's fine. You don't have to tree your dog, but we're in the process of shining this tree. That's where you're scratched. And that's what he couldn't quite get through to him maybe. But
Yep.
sometimes it's hard to get. I mean, we've all been there, I think. Sometimes whenever people are the most frustrated, it's kind of hard to talk to them like that. And sometimes you have to give them a chance to cool down before you can explain in the totality of the rule. But yeah, that's a good one. One. You got it. I see you have another one highlighted over there.
No, that's just I thought it was unique. Every one of our rules usually go A, B, C, and D, maybe E and F. And then you go over to scratching a fence. And I don't want to talk about playing defense. I like to think about going forward. But it goes to X. A, B, C, D, F, G, all the way to X.
Yeah. And that X can catch you in a lot of different places too.
Implied scratch, but one, and I know this is a little bit silly, but scoring aids for the T is for use of scoring aids other than light mechanical squallers or thermal imaging device. Laser point light is permitted. And one thing I see, people, we know that you can't use a phone to score a tree. Everybody knows that, but I see people still using the phone out on the cast, holding it up in the tree. And if someone is real good at playing defense and a club hunter are at a low level, that's a scratchable offense. If they question that, you could get scratched for using a phone because you're using something other than. And I don't like to focus on negativity or playing defense. I like to turn the dogs loose and just have a coon tree and fest. But in some situations, defense is important, and definitely make sure you don't get scratched with a phone in your hand trying to score something other than what is listed in the book.
Yeah, you're talking about taking pictures of something or blowing it up or something like that to use it as for a scoring aid. And yeah, you can't do that. Same thing with mirrors and things like that, But yeah, and you guys have probably all had that somebody come in. We see it even more with today's technology, And sometimes I think maybe we need to look at some of that stuff. But I can tell you, I've also seen so many things that I think we also should caution to even considering some of that, because they say camera doesn't lie. Sometimes they absolutely do lie. I have done enough camera work and enough video work that in different angles and stuff, you can make things look like you want them to look sometimes, But no, you're exactly right, So, but hey, the one thing added the thermal imaging to it there, what have you, that's but yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Usually when I'm taking a family photo or something, I try to get the camera to manipulate about 10 or 20 pounds off myself.
Yeah, and that's why when you're taking selfies, you see all our women friends taking selfies. They've got the camera up here, up high, now, that you're talking about angles, and I see Trevor doing that at work too, and he's doing, he puts all this stuff on social media. No,
Oh goodness. Yeah. Hey, I got so we talked to us about some different misconceptions, but I got another question for you guys. Maybe not about that, and I'll start here to my left, Philip. You're coming up here. You're working the tournament champion finals. You got people here hunting for their share of $250,000. Do you do some prep or some homework on the drive here, maybe the night before, where you just kind of refresh yourself on this rule book?
Trevor, I'm gonna be honest with you, and I try to stay up on the rules. I try to read the rule book at least through once a month. I really do, because I just want to stay up on the rules, and I really try to read it about once a month, go through it. Yeah. Yep.
Same question to you, Brandon. Do you? I see you got notes all in yours. That thing's battered.
2 or 3 things that I know where they're at all times. Don't mess with my billfold, and don't mess with my rule book. Now I have 2 or 3 rule books, but my rule book is thumb carded and highlighted here and there, and don't mess with that one, because I read it, and when I hear something, and I'm a podcast man, and I know when I'm on the road 10 hours a day, and I have a rule book that I read, and then I'll listen to a podcast, and when there's something, I'll go highlight it and stay on top of it. You can't read it enough, because I've read it. It's like watching a movie. Forrest Gump's my favorite movie of all time. I've watched this movie time after time after time, and I could watch it right now, and I would see something that I didn't see, something historical or funny, something in there that sometimes you just need to repaint the post, and knowledge is, you can't have enough of it.
Doug, same question for you.
I usually probably once a month.
Yeah.
I usually do a lot of these breed days and stuff, and sitting around here late at night, I've got to have something to read.
I say there's been times where I come rolling in, maybe even like Winter Classic this year, and you're by yourself in there, kind of slow before people start rolling in, and you got the rule book out there.
Always looking at it.
Yeah, just prepping yourself a little bit.
You never know what you might miss.
Yeah. I probably don't read the rule book as much as I should, but what I like reading now are some of the old advisor columns you and Todd wrote to look for some different situations and stuff. Whenever I know now you have to worry about beagle rules and curve ice rules, but when you were in this situation, is that something you try to do, is make it kind of a weekly or before a major event, especially, to kind of tune yourself up?
Yeah, no, I do that all the time, and you're right. I have to study about 4 different rule books, and times for me is probably the hardest thing, man. Only because they have changed in the last 4 or 5 years. Some of the times but that's the biggest thing, and moved around a little bit. But yeah, oftentimes before I go to one of the major events, just like as we're recording this next week, I'll have a beagle event, so I'll go through the rules there before at some point. Just do on the trip or in the hotel or something, because you don't want to be embarrassed. You get a lot of rules questions, and I love rules talks, but. Hey, I don't know what all you guys got, but I have one here that I would like for us to discuss a little bit, and that is advice to judges. And maybe the better advice is what not to do. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, well, hey, Philip mentioned a really good one right off the bat, and that was telling everybody to do it. But another thing, and it kind of irks me, and I heard it from someone already this weekend, is when a judge gets the card and they lack in the confidence already. First thing they say, "Hey guys, I just let you know, maybe I haven't, I may not be as familiar with the rules as I should be right now. I haven't done a lot of studying lately." You start out on that kind of solid, on that kind of rocky foundation, it's going to be wishy-washy the whole way. You have to be confident. Do your homework beforehand if you accept an assignment, and be confident in yourself and know the rules, and know that there's procedures in place if you were to make a misinterpretation. But you have to have some confidence in yourself and your knowledge, and know that the procedures will work themselves out if something does arise. But don't be wishy-washy. Make your call and stand by it.
Absolutely. I would just echo what Trevor just said about that. When you're judging, make your call. Don't be wishy-washy. Questions are not a bad thing, but don't be wishy-washy in your call. You're not sure, come back. The officials event officials will get it right, but don't waver in your calls. Be confident in your calls. Keep the cast together when you're hunting. Take control of the cast and right from the front, and I think things will go a lot smoother if you just set the precedence at the beginning of the hunt. Once you ever get wishy-washy and let things get out of hand, bad things will happen quickly.
Ain't never bringing it back.
You can't, once it get loose from you can't bring it back.
Yep.
And,
make that decision. I mean, like you said, we can always come back and change it, but don't make a decision and get wishy-washy with it.
It's not the end of the world. Everybody has made a wrong decision in the field, and it's not the end of the world. I mean, don't worry yourself tremendously till you don't. I don't never want to judge anymore. I've seen that before. Make a decision. We have a set of rules that are in place in a format. When you bring it back, if it's wrong, we have something in place to fix that, to make it right. But don't stress. But you cannot not make a decision. You have to go forward. And I'm telling you, when you get them out of the truck, when you have control of that cast, it's a lot easier to keep a cast together, keep it straight on the front side, because once you let it go, as Philip said, you ain't bringing that, you ain't getting that train back on the track.
Yeah, and we're talking about that. We got to be a little firm in the way you do things, but there's a certain threshold you get where you're out here, and in most cases, you're judging. You're assigned to judge grown men and women, and nobody wants to be disrespected by somebody. If you're judging, you can't go out there with a chip on your shoulder.
That's a fact.
And disrespect the people in your cast. Yeah, you've been assigned to judge, and you can do it in a stern manner. But when you start disrespecting people, that's whenever issues can arise. Don't go in there with the Napoleon effect and think now you're the conqueror just because you've been assigned to judge. If you start disrespecting grown folks, things can get awry in a hurry.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely. And what does it cost you to be kind? Does it cost you anything to smile and to be kind out there? Be strong. Don't be wishy-washy, but also sow kindness along the way.
Yeah, you guys hit the nail on the head. Be decisive, and like I said, you got to make a decision sometimes, and there's procedures in place, and hey, I've been in that situation a lot of times, and that's how you learn. That's how through the mistakes you make is how you gain experience, and you learn from those. And here's the other thing that I would add: don't be offended if your ruling gets overturned.
Oh, absolutely.
But yeah, and for me, I always like strong judges, but I hate when an arrogant judge, right out of the gate, and the opposite of that is also not good. We talked about it here in the onset. Everybody's a judge. No, they're not. You're the judge.
Yep.
But yeah, keep your cast together is a big one, and we at UKC hear it all the time with the maintaining a pace attainable by everybody. Oftentimes, it may be easy for us to say, but I don't think so. You have an older gentleman who is slower walking or whatever. All you do, you just start to the trees a little sooner. You just stop a few more times.
Right. You
don't always have to be there right at 3 minutes, but the rule says that, maintain a pace attainable by all. And there should never be anybody complaining about that. If somebody's complaining about that, you know what? At some point, you did not pay attention. Look around.
Right.
Make sure you have everybody.
Yep.
Someday you might be the old man wanting them to slow down.
Yep. And I found too, I used to judge quite a bit on a few hunts. If you'll be firm, but fair and respectful, and if you make a call, take the time to show people the call, the ruling you made. And if you'll do that, I found over the years, if you'll take that time to show them why you made that ruling, they'll respect that decision, and most times it'll cut down on a lot of things. If you'll just take that time and say, this is why I made this call, this is the reason I made this call, this is how this rule applies, folks will appreciate that. If you'll take the time, they'll really appreciate that. Be firm, but be fair and be respectful.
I think that's good advice. Do you guys have any advice before we get off here for people who may be interested in becoming a master of hounds? I know, Doug, who knows how long you've been a master of hounds now?
Years.
Yeah. We need more of them. We need more of them.
I'll tell you something else. Going kind of back to this judging thing. Some of these guys, that's good experienced judges, need to take some of these young kids at these local hunts and let them start carrying the card and working with them. Yeah. Because it's getting to the point where we need good quality judges. So.
Absolutely. I think that's good advice. Well, we got a lot of stuff to do this evening. It's about to get dark here, and we're about to go hand out $100,000 to 3 different hounds. But before we get off, I'll start with you and go this way this time. Favorite event to officiate on the calendar?
World Hunt.
World Championship.
Yep.
How many have you done now? Do you know offhand?
I'm going to say close to 15.
Yeah. Does one stick out in your mind right offhand or not really?
No, not really. I enjoy them all.
Yeah, I hear you. Louisiana?
That was a long haul.
Brandon, favorite of I know you haven't been around very long as an official, but you did Autumn Oaks, you did Winter Classic, and now you've done zones, regions, you've done World Championship and TOC, so you pretty much covered the bases here.
Well, I just can't. Everything's different. I love the World Hunt. This has a different atmosphere. It's more candid. It's a beautiful place. The weather's just right. No leaves on. But I just can't help but remember them good old boys from Vardaman, Mississippi down there. I just like it. I just like them boys. They work hard. They making a big old bowl of soup. And it's just a good group of guys. If you've never been down south of Vardaman, Mississippi, that's a good place. Not the most beautiful place that you've been to. It's a little old club. It's like cobbled up. Something you're afraid the wall might fall in or something. But you've never met people that appreciate you no more than right there in Vardaman. And I just like those guys.
I'll tell you what, the Winter Classic, you can't find any better people all the way around that whole town.
Absolutely,
they're all polite. Enjoy you being there.
Yep.
Philip?
UKC World Hunt and the Winter Classic.
Really?
Yep.
A lot of Winter Classics.
Yep.
Alan, put you on the spot. Favorite Coonhound event?
You are putting me on the spot, but I always say I feel like they're all different, and that's what I like about them. But sure, I have my favorites too. I love Autumn Oaks. Honestly, it's hard for me to pick a favorite. I love Autumn Oaks. I love the Winter Classic, and they're just different. They're different, and I think I like them because they're different, and also in their own right. The World Championship, love the World Championship. The TOC here is also different. Love it. It's really hard for me to pick, but I think when it really comes down to it for me, it's probably most of these that I'm talking about were busy, but the Winter Classic is hard to beat. The atmosphere and has a whole lot to do with what you guys just mentioned, the people in that area.
Very true.
Very true. Yeah. And I'll say too, the Grand American means a lot to me too, because I've been going there for years and years since I was just a small boy. In fact, in the 70s, my dad was the secretary of that event. I've been going there for years, and that's a special one to me too. The Grand American means a lot to me too.
Yeah, I guess my favorite's whatever when I'm at that weekend. But I'm thinking here, I would have never probably been in a position to be on the final cast of a World Championship, or to see somebody win $50,000, or to win a national Grand Night champion title before this job. So being out there and just seeing somebody's life, like a lifetime of hard work, and seeing somebody achieve it, that's always the last thing that happens at an event, and to cap it. And a lot of you guys, how many have we seen come to the truck and embrace their father or their backup handler or their brother or their family, and just almost brought to tears.
I know you probably want to get this wrapped up. You're right. I've seen a lot of those too, and sometimes I'm getting a little older, and I appreciate everything that you do. You get to do some of those, but sometimes I'm a little bit jealous still too, because I enjoy a lot of those, and I know exactly what you mean. I saw a lot of them, but I do want to make sure Trevor and I can't do anything. A lot of work working on these programs and everything. It's folks like you that really help us, and I really feel like the events that we're talking about, some of them are putting on our own events. Man, we really appreciate everything that you guys do. I try to, like we're at the TOC where we're recording this, try to stress that to the guides and the judges. You do appreciate everybody, but you guys are also an essential part.
I want to thank y'all too, Alan, for the opportunity to do this. You and Trevor both. I mean, who'd have thought a little country boy from Anderson County, South Carolina, that loved coonhounds would get the opportunity to go to these major events and see a world champion crowned and $50,000 giveaway. I mean, it's great, and I thank y'all. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah, thanks a lot, guys.
I appreciate you. Come to love you guys, and I'll tell you that straight up.
Hey, man, I really appreciate this conversation. We'll probably do it again. We'll do it again. We're together quite a bit. Seems like the big UKC family here at a lot of these major events, and we do a lot of work, and it's been a real busy weekend, and we squeaked this in here at the last hour we had available for us. We've all been hard at it. We got little sleep, and we got a little less sleep coming our way before we finally get to, but I really appreciate you guys, and I think I speak for everybody here. We appreciate the listeners who give us feedback on these rule interpretation podcasts, and we appreciate everybody who comes to our major events and interacts with Alan and I and all the field reps, and we appreciate it. We appreciate you guys coming out and supporting UKC.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to the UKC Hunting Ops Podcast. Be sure to give us a follow so you don't miss any of our new episodes or content.